Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! You can find us on the wide world of the interweb if you want. My name is Josh. I host Primus Tracks. I co-host it with a young man seated on the 39th floor of Primus Tracks Towers. They keep adding stories. He stays on the 39th. He says the air there is the purest. It's Frankie Berestein.
Hey, Josh.
Hi, Frankie. How are you on this fine day? What is your view
I'm very
like
excited
today?
about this track.
You're very excited about One Better.
One
track.
Better.
I'm sorry. I've been saying it wrong all these years. One Better. Who better to bring us some knowledge about this track called One Better? It's the man who always has one better, no matter how much you have. He's the bass player of La Special. He's also in a couple acts, Frankie. One of them's called Drunken Doja Monkey, which is fascinating. And,
Wow.
and another one is simply called The Mites.
Wow.
And I would love to welcome him back to the podcast for, I think, the 33rd time. It's Luke Bemand.
Luke.
Hello, boys. What an honor. 33rd time's the charm. Let's do it.
So glad to have you back and to talk about...
The bicep of the record.
We're talking about the bicep today. Do you now, as a man who has made many records at this point in your life, Luke, you must know about album anatomy.
Yeah, but that's the first time I've heard of a track being referred to as the bicep, and I am with it, and I agree wholeheartedly about this track.
It's showy, just like a bicep. It's showy, and unlike a bicep, which doesn't actually do much, this song does a lot. So,
or as Frankie would say, it's quite thick.
Yes.
Oh goodness, thickness abounds here with One Better.
Yes.
Well, it's great to have you here for this. Actually, if you don't mind, if you'll indulge us, what's your overall relationship with the Of Whales and Woe record?
Yeah, I remember purchasing this record when it came out in 2006. I was a senior in high school, and we were actually on a senior field trip in New York City. And I snuck away from the class to go to the Virgin Megastore and buy a copy of the record.
A Virgin Megastore.
Yeah, right in Times Square. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, great record store.
I'm speechless.
Yeah. Have you never been to one?
I have been to a Virgin Megastore, but I visited one in Canada. I never got
cool.
the chance to visit one in the US.
Yeah. Oh man, it was my favorite place in the world. It had this giant magic wand cover to it. It was a magical place as a youth for sure. So yeah, I got out there and I got the record and I got back to the bus in time and I was able to listen to it on my Walkman, my Sony Walkman.
Yes.
So I'll always remember that. Yeah, I mean, this album is a wacky one. I think the tracks that I enjoyed the most when the record came out are still kind of in rotation now, or at least they were being played on the Frog Brigade tour, like Phantom Patriot and Lust Stings and One Better. And yeah, I love this record. It's got some really cool, great bass lines. I love Skerrick's playing. I love Mike D's playing. And I actually was texting with Mike a little bit before the pod tonight about this track, so I can share with you guys a little anecdote from Mike D later.
That's cheating, but okay.
I guess you're right. Should I just share it with you now? I don't know what the point of.
Well, I tell you what, we don't have any Mike D anecdotes, so you got us one better on that.
Okay, nice one. So I was texting with him. He's doing the Bastard Jazz gig tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah,
with the Colonel. Yeah, out in Knoxville.
Correct.
So I was just texting with him, and I told him I was going on the podcast, and we were talking about One Better, and I just asked him, "Hey, do you have any, stories or anecdotes about recording that one?" And he said, I'll do, I guess, Mike D voice. He goes, "Man, I had a blast on that record. Les and I did Rumble of the Diesel when I was out there hanging with him. I played drums on that track. We did bass and drums on the spot, and then he did some funky guitar on it. Yeah, bro, we went out on his boat, and I watched him heave his line out in the salty waves." So that's Mike's. And then he just said, "One Better marimba party. We just took off."
That sounded like a cross between Mike D and Tom Waits.
Yeah, I know. Well, he kind of has a little bit of like a Louisiana Tom Waits twang to his voice. I can listen to that man
Savannah.
talk all day.
No, that's a pretty good mic. I like that, Luke.
It's not bad, but yeah, and I just, he said that I asked him, had that track come about pretty organically, like a lot of his solo stuff does, and he had said, he's been texting me from two different numbers. He goes, sorry, I just landed in Knoxville. I got a different number. Okay.
Oh, weird.
So he said Les had already done that one and just laid marimba on top of it. He said Les had most of them done already. He played drums and all the parts, and me and Skerrick just did dubbed parts.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that sounds like the usual approach for the Whales and Woe record.
Yeah, like Les recording them himself at Rancho and then bringing in those guys. But Mike did drums on Rumble of the Diesel, which I did not know, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Rumble is one you've played with him live, correct?
We've kind of like teased that before. Rory and I used to play that, but I don't know if we've done it with fucking A, but I actually suggested it to Mike and he heart reacted it. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, we're going to do it.
In the parlance of our times, that's a yes.
That's an affirmative. Yes.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for sharing that, as well as the fact that apparently old Mike D's got a burner wherever he goes. That's pretty cool.
I know, right? Like, what? This is his, like, Knoxville number.
I want to
Frankie.
share this with you guys to kick off the track. So back when I first got the record, that was around 2008, I believe, I immediately fell completely in love with this song. I was just blown away by the bass line, by the intricacy of the whole composition. I thought the lyrics were hilarious. I mean, I just loved the track. And one of the first thoughts that came to my mind was, I wonder if someone has tried to cover this song. So in the primitive days of YouTube, I typed Les Claypool One Better bass cover, and I came across a video from a guy who I think I've referenced on the podcast before, Zodiac Iron Fist. So in the early days of YouTube, this guy was a pioneer of bass covers, Primus and Les Claypool bass covers. He was a very, very talented musician. He sadly passed away several years ago, but his videos are still up. That's his legacy. And they are very, very fascinating and fun to watch. He did tackle One Better. So I remember that, first of all, I was flabbergasted by his cover, but then I read his description, and I guess that his description provided more insight to me in terms of how complex the song actually is. So in the description, he said, first off, let me begin by saying I have no business putting this video up because I am far from learning the tune perfectly. Les fills the tune with numerous little tidbits and feels that I am too mentally challenged to remember. So during these parts, I just made up whatever felt good for me. Of course, by the way, I uploaded this tune based on a request. I'm not sure I would have had the courage to release the tune otherwise. And then in the comments, someone said, my band actually requested that I learn One Better for a show. And Zodiac Iron Fist responded, I wouldn't inflict One Better on my worst enemy. So this gave me some insight on how difficult this song is to play live. By the way, there's also a video on YouTube from a guy that attempted to cover the Bonnaroo 2008 live version. And in his description, he also mentions that a lot of stuff he's just making up as he goes along because it's practically impossible to figure out what Les is doing during the track. So what do you think, Luke, about these comments regarding One Better?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point. It is definitely a difficult one. It's a tongue twister of a bass line. I love that Bonnaroo 2008 version. I figured we'd be talking about that. I was listening to that and kind of watching it for reference. It's like a longer phrase of a bass line. It's not just like a short 4-bar phrase. It's more of like like an 8-bar phrase, I guess, depending on how you're counting it. But it's a longer part, and he's doing the classic or typical Les Claypool variations and subtle fills, and it's always slightly different, and sometimes he's pushing it, and sometimes he's, things are slightly different. So, right before I did the podcast, I recorded a video of me playing it that I'm going to try and release in conjunction with the episode. And I was like, this is pretty hard to play exactly what he's playing in time with him because of the nature of all the variations and stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one. Le Special covered it once, and I think it was like the year it came out, like 2006 or 2007. So we were, John was probably a freshman in college. I was a senior, Rory was a junior in high school, and I just remember we played at this like outdoor event, and it took us a while to come out. We were probably just like smoking weed in the van or something, and like we go out and we played it, and it like wasn't great, but we decided to start the show like that because we were all super into the song. I just remember John's dad. His comment was, "Yeah, it took you guys a while to come out, and when you did, you weren't exactly the Rolling Stones." So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend bands come out and start with like a shitty version of One Better. You will let your fathers down. Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. But it's been really fun to like dive back into the last few days of playing. It's an awesome bass line.
And it's very tricky because it never stands still, right? It's
true. It's constant.
It's not reiterative. Exactly. It's full of twists and turns. It just keeps you on your toes the entire song.
Right, and it's a lot of like the Les Claypool techniques all in one. He's slapping, he's popping, or thumping and plucking, as he would say. There's that little major third chord he strums. It's percussive. It's very busy. So yeah, this is in the more advanced Claypoolian bass lines, I'd say for sure.
With that beautiful Carl in your hands, I can't wait to hear it. Let's give a little bit of vital statistics on this one. One Better is track 2 of Whales and Woe. Checks in at 5 minutes and 59 seconds, at least on my CD rip. Fade it out for another second, man. Get the flat 6 minutes. It's so irritating. On the track, we have bass, vocals, guitar, and drums by Les Claypool, Mike Dillon on marimba, Skerrick on tenor sax. Got a live history on this one?
One Better was premiered at the Fillmore in San Francisco on December 30th, 2005, with the Fancy Band. Of course, it was jammed out, but the song is essentially there. So I would not classify this as a skeletal version in the sense that, for example, with Oysterhead, we had these prototypes, right, before the record came out. In this case, we're talking about the end of 2005, but One Better was fully formed. So this was the staple. It was the showstopper of the Fancy Band throughout 2006, 2007, 2008. Then it was also performed by the Fungi Band, of course, different band configuration, same song. It was played a few times, a handful of times by none other than Duo the Twang. The torch was then passed on to Les Claypool's Bastard Jazz. Then it was resurrected in 2023 by the Frog Brigade. And this is very peculiar because some performances had saxophone, some others didn't. And the latest performance to date was a tease on New Year's Eve, 2023, at the Great American Music Hall. So,
well, that was because Skerrick wasn't on the first half of that tour,
right?
But sometimes there were guest saxophone players that.
Oh, that's true. My homie Greg Sanderson, shout out.
That's right.
Plays so cool. Yeah, Greg is the man.
So the song has always been stretched out live. It's a jam vehicle, and it's also a gateway for two different songs. It could, depending on Less Smooth, it could either be Glythe or it can be Tommy the Cat. And we're going to sample both things tonight. Now, as I just mentioned, it has been performed by several bands, but to honor of Whales and Woe, we're just going to sample fancy versions tonight. What I also want to point out is that Josh mentioned the track fades on the record, but when it was performed live, they came up with this incredible conclusion to the song, which is basically a showcase for what a monster drummer Paolo Baldi can be. Yeah, we're going to sample several outros tonight because you've got to listen to how they wrap up One Better. It's just mind-blowing.
Interesting that they don't just fade out on stage
and slowly disappear, right?
Thanks.
Very exciting.
Thanks for laughing at that. Sort of, guys. You're on fire today. There's no mystery why this is the true opening track of the record after Back Off Turkey. It's high energy, it's upbeat, got really great licks. Les is leading off, as he calls it, and as Frankie has referenced, with the bicep, showing off a little bit to to get the record kicked off the right way. Now, Frankie mentioned that Les would work in Tommy the Cat in some of these live renditions. Of note in these drum audition videos that are going up weekly on YouTube at this time, as Primus auditions drummers, one thing Les has repeatedly said is that Tommy the Cat wears out his hand. And so I'm wondering if One Better is in that ballpark. And Luke, you of anybody would know.
Yeah, it's been interesting to hear him comment on that. I like in some like subreddits, people are like, "Oh man, like, maybe he's getting arthritis," and maybe it's just like, well, the dude is like in his 60s, and he's like, his bass lines are not exactly easy to play. I mean, that Tommy the Cat is difficult for most bass players to play. So, and he's playing them like with different drummers constantly, which is difficult. I think that it's hard to say which is more difficult. It's kind of subjective. Tommy the Cat is probably a bit more physically demanding than this. It is kind of just the hardest one, to play. That's why Soya has the Tommy test. But side note, the craziest thing about these videos to me is that he puts glue on his fingers before every take.
So have you ever seen the super glue trick before?
I had heard of it, but I had no idea Les did it. That's very interesting.
Now that you mentioned the drum videos, it's interesting that in the Pridgeon episode, Les said that you have to respect the songs, the Primus songs live, at least the classics, right? They need to be performed as people have come to know and love them. So when it comes to Tommy the Cat, yes, the bridge has a bass solo, which is always going to be different. And it has room for improvisation. But otherwise, Tommy the Cat is a song with a specific structure, whereas One Better is free form. Les can do whatever he wants with that song live. So I would guess it's a lot less. It's difficult to play, but I guess it's less demanding than Tommy the Cat in the sense that with Tommy, he knows that people want to hear a specific version of the song. And with One Better, I mean, Les can do whatever he wants on stage with the main riff, right?
Yeah, it definitely changes. Like in that 2008 Bonnaroo version, he does change the bass line. It's a little bit different. It doesn't have that like diminished pop that the album version has, which is interesting because he plays it like that every time. So yeah, I think that there's less people that are like, "Hey man, you didn't do that octave pop on One Better." Whereas like Tommy the Cat, they'd be like, "Dude, what?" I think you're onto something there. It's a little bit more freeform.
And then another interesting thing about One Better is that it's really complex and really busy, but the song breathes during the chorus. I find that very peculiar. There are portions where it's just drums and vocals, and it does give the track some space to breathe because it's so compelling.
Yeah, there's a lot of like call and response in that, and it's cool on the record because it's Skerrick, but on some of those fancy band versions, it's Sam Bass on the cello.
Yes.
So yeah, totally. Yeah, I like that chorus a lot. And it gives this, them space to do different fills and variations of things.
So if we had to break down One Better into structure, and we use the live versions as a reference, I'd say we would have the main riff opening the song, first verse, first chorus, a little bit of jamming, second verse, second chorus, then usually Skerrick would break down the song after the second chorus, indicating that the jamming was about to begin. Then it's fully freeform, right? It could be bass solo, it could be a cello solo, a saxophone solo, a sitar solo. There was space with marimba solo. There was a space for all kinds of things. And after some jamming, it could be Glythe, could be Tommy the Cat, and then final chorus. Well, not the full chorus per se, but the hook. You get the hook a few more times, and then you get the amazing wrap-up, which we're going to hear later. So that would be One Better in terms of structure.
Wow. Now, I got to throw this to you, Luke. Would you rather listen to One Better or listen to Frankie narrate One Better?
Honestly, I don't like if there could be like a DVD commentary for the whole album with Frankie, I would totally listen to it. Yeah, I would do it. Like if I could get like headphones watching a show. Yeah, I'd pay extra for sure.
Yes, that is the next step in this evolution. Is Frankie doing commentary for specific live shows?
Second chorus, guys.
And you
Yeah.
you sync it and you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here for it.
Listen as the envelope filter goes into overdrive here.
Yeah.
He tees up Skerrick perfectly. I'm just giving this to you, Frankie. Gosh, you're good.
It's a great
Brilliant.
concept.
Brilliant.
Like, yeah, DVD commentary over tracks.
Love this idea.
That's untapped potential.
Well, you got that beautiful Carl Thompson in your hand, Luke.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind showing the good people watching on video over at
Yes, please.
patreon.com/Primus Tracks, and of course all the wonderful people listening. What are we hearing? Because this is a really, as Frankie has suggested and as you've mentioned, it's a tough one. It's a little more complicated than usual. It doesn't necessarily get lost in the mix, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on the record. So hearing it in isolation would be helpful.
Yeah, well, first off, to introduce this bass to the Patreon viewers, but also anyone just listening. If you're listening, I'll describe it intricately to you. Not really, but I don't own this bass. This is on loan from my friend Joe Cruz at MBJ Guitars. He works closely with Carl, and this was one of the first Carl Thompson basses that he built. So he calls it his CT-ish bass. So it's very thin-bodied, and it's a short scale, technically, which a lot of Carl Thompson basses are very long, like 36-inch scale. This is only a 32-inch. So it's a lot lighter. It's easier for somebody that's a little bit smaller like me to play. And yeah, this bass I've been having a blast with it. I've been borrowing it for a couple months while Joe is busy in his shop with lots of other projects for MBJ and Carl, but also building me a new one. So, awesome. Yeah, I was excited to come on the pod and actually play like a Claypool line on the Carl Thompson. Okay, I guess I should play it then, eh?
No, you can just keep caressing it. That's fine.
just slowly rubbing the round scroll here.
Oh, yeah.
For anyone listening, when I pause, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'll just play like the main line because, it's like the album version starts out, there's like 4 bars out front of just kind of like a little improv kind of funk riff. Mm-hmm. But I'll probably fuck that up, so I'll try and just do the main riff. Okay, so it's basically this. And that's it twice with at least minimal mistakes.
Your hands don't stop moving.
Yeah, it's very right-hand percussive, back and forth between the thumping and the plucking. Yeah,
wow,
it's a lot going on.
You weren't kidding. He's it's a kitchen sink bass riff for the Claypool catalog.
It's all the things, So I mean, it's it starts with just like a diminished triad, which is a lot of Primus. Yeah, but it goes to the 4. And then, like, if you look up bass tabs or videos or things like that, they'll kind of tell you that it's like... But I think it's a little bit easier, and it's more like Claypoolian to do this kind of slap pop. So it's like you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could do... And it's just like a little bit more bouncier, and it's also just like that economy of motion that I've talked about probably ad nauseum at this point on the podcast.
Oh, for sure.
It's easier than slapping 3 notes in a row with 3 downstrokes of your thumb to hammer, pluck, thump,
Yeah.
And then he's got this little, like this great little just major third triad that sticks out. And it always kind of like resets or starts over with that big slide. So yeah, that's basically what's going on. And then that live version in 08, and a lot of the times he just kind of does this like... Which I kind of like that too. It's a little bit more just like, I don't know, persistent up front, but I'm partial to the album version where he pops that up.
Oh, sure.
So it's just a fun, bouncy slap riff.
Is it? It's pretty heavy strumming in the chorus, pre-chorus and chorus. I think
it's kind of like I was trying to watch how he was doing it on that on the Bonnaroo one. It's kind of like he plays it up at the 12th fret. Yeah. I think he's more just kind of slaps like.
Okay.
And then all the... I think he's just kind of doing like this a down slap motion.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to hear because it gets like fuller there. Like you can really hear Mike on the marimbas and the sax. Like it's all doubling up. It's just like a little 3-note chromatic descending line. But I was kind of shocked to see that he's playing it up on the 12th fret too. It's interesting. He doesn't play a lot of bass lines like up here and like on the 12th fret, slapping and popping. And it's challenging because it's kind of tough to slap and pop where the strings are a little bit like tighter this far up. Like most funk bass would be like, you know, you would do it like around the 7th fret, and you're popping a G string, but Les has to just make it a little bit more difficult, I think, for everyone to imitate with this one.
I mean, you got to do it just a little bit different to throw people off the scent, right?
Yeah, which like when I probably was playing it that way until the first time I saw him do it with Fancy Band or whoever, and I was like, oh, interesting, he's playing it up at the 12th fret.
Huh. So he's doing some really cool stuff throughout, and then near the end, when Mike takes his solo on the record, is he? If I recall, he kind of just is he just sitting on a note essentially and letting Mike go nuts?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been going back and forth between some live versions and stuff. I think he's just kind of, he does like that little bass solo, and then he likes just riffing like off mic, but talking to Mike, it seems like he recorded all the bass parts and Mike just overdubbed. Yeah. So, who knows? Maybe the solo they recorded together, maybe Les was just kind of thumping and playing along to his drum track, and Mike knows how to play with Les so well that he doesn't need to be in the same room playing with him. But I do enjoy the live versions where he's like improvising and interacting with people. Mm-hmm. And I thought of you, Frankie, in the Bonnaroo version where he turns on the envelope filter in the jam. And then it does go pretty hard. But it's cool. I like that he plays it clean for like the first 2 choruses. And then when he hits that, it gives it that nice wet boost.
Of course, Frankie loves that one.
Yes.
There's no doubt. I would imagine on the studio recording, of course, it's difficult to play interactively when you lay down the drum track and then you got to lay down the bass on top of it. So it's probably hard to predict yourself. And so he plays it pretty straight on the record, and I think those live performances clearly provide that opportunity, as many tunes do over the years.
It's a jam vehicle, baby.
Have you? This might be the jammiest or the vehicleiest jammy thing. Now he does something unique here, and he does this throughout much of the record, where he lays down the drums and the bass and some guitar, and so he's the entire rhythm section. Have you ever done something like that yourself? Just messing around?
That talented. I can't do that shit. Johnny, our guitarist, can do that. He's made demos where he's played guitar, bass, and sometimes he'll put like a drum track over it, but he can play drums as well. I can't do that shit. Like, I tried to do that when I would try and like record on like a little 8-track and stuff, but my drumming is pretty like rudimentary. But I like Les's drumming. It's fun. It always just like fits the parts, you know? Mm-hmm. It's fun to just kind of hear him like jam with himself, you know?
Yeah. He plays a pretty driving beat here, and it's pretty ballsy. I like the drum lick, and he pretty much sticks to it throughout the entirety, and that's fine. And it's not a simplistic line, so it holds my interest over just under 6 minutes, and has just keeps that pulse going. And so I think that's really where the drums are really like flexing the bicep there.
Yeah, and I think it's deliberately straight because with such like an intricate bass part, and the lyrics are great, and he's like telling a good story, and like Frankie was saying, like it's funny, like the lyrics are funny and like fun to listen to. So I think that's kind of deliberate. He doesn't want your ears to get stretched in too many directions. But then when you watch the live versions with Paulo, like he really funks it up, and he has some great playing on it. Yeah.
Nice. Yes. The wrap up. I mean, it's
really cool.
It's on Tim Alexander and Jay Lane's level.
Totally. It really is. And I was even thinking, like, damn, this is like some J-Ski type beats that he's playing on this one. Yeah.
Ooh. Yes.
Well, as Les always says, when he plays drums, he's imitating Jay Lane. And I think he does that very well throughout this record.
For sure.
And in this track in particular. I do want to point out, too, Les's guitar playing is pretty cool on this track and throughout the record. He makes some really cool atonal noises that don't necessarily fit into the beat and just weave around it. I wonder where he got that idea.
No guitarists he's ever played with before have done that.
And in terms of the guitar, it's also a song that has given the guitar players a chance to come up with very unique things, because
Yeah.
Merv has staffed the song. Brian Kehoe has also had a shot at the song with Duo the Twang. And I mean, what a challenging song to tackle with that project, because as a guitar player, he was on the spot night after night. Even Sean Lennon has tackled One Better.
Yeah.
And the thing about Sean is that when they performed One Better with the Frog Brigade in 2023, they also teased another number, but I'm not sure what it is called, but it's one of those old school funk numbers.
Huh. Yeah, I did see them play it with the Frogs with Sean a couple times.
Yeah.
I would love to hear another version of that.
I think if you give that tune to Merv, you're going to get something great.
Oh yeah, he's killer on that Bonnaroo version.
Oh
It's
my
so
god!
good.
Oh no, it's a Stone Cold classic. It's on the Les Claypool Mount Rushmore of live shows, which is the
it's
LSD
awesome.
thing.
Yeah, it's so good. It's such a great show. And it's all, if anyone hasn't checked it out, it's good quality on YouTube. It's totally worth checking out.
Oh, geez, go get it for sure. This tune is this is the one Frankie fell in love with. I would say this one really caught my ear right off the bat, and it's once again got a really catchy chorus. And this is the thing that we've come back to, I think, over the years doing this podcast is although Primus and Claypool are out in left field for the normies, and it's really hard for a lot of people to grasp. There's a lot of catchy shit in this in these tunes, and this is a great example. Just with that chromatic, I'm gonna get you one better.
Yep.
And then the response, just you wait and see, and that kind of thing. It's really it's catchy, and it's not. This is certainly not less at his weirdest. I think this is probably less at his probably almost poppiest and catchiest here.
Vocally, I agree, but bass playing, it's maybe one of the weirder bass parts, I would say.
In what way?
Just in the way that it's constantly kind of changing, and it's got that weird little, it starts with, a diminished slap part, and then there's, a major chord, and then it's, percussive, and it's just kind of if you weren't familiar with Les Claypool's bass playing and you heard that bass line, you'd probably be like, what the hell is that? I think anybody would be impressed by the technicality, but the musicality of it is pretty weird, but it's, I think even for Les.
Guys, I got it. The song that was teased during some performances of One Better during the last Fort Brigade tour is, the name is Bootsy Baby.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Old Bootsy Baby.
Is it like a Funkadelic song?
I believe it's Bootsy Collins, right?
It's like Bootsy Collins, yeah, because he's on some of those records. Oh, cool.
Yeah, okay. He played with Delight and many other groups, and he was actually there. He was there when they inaugurated the Les Claypool official day.
Oh, in Cincinnati, that's right.
Those of you who navigated YouTube in its primitive days may have come across what was intended to be passed off as a music video for One Better.
I wanted to ask you about this, Frankie. Sorry to interrupt, because it's still on YouTube, and it's like an edited version of the track. It's only about 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It is not official.
Okay.
Somebody very cleverly and in a very interesting way, they synchronized One Better with Concert for a Carrot Pie. That's the name of the animation.
Okay.
But it's not official. But whomever came up with the idea, he was spot on. For some reason, the animation just fits the song really well.
Yes, and it's kind of that freaky quasi-medieval looking animation that.
Yeah, actually, I think One Better would fit one of those old school Russian animations that were just so left field and so out there,
like Worker and Parasite.
Exactly.
This is news to me, fellas.
It's a good old time, and just as annoyingly, it's 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
Huh. Interesting. So what? They just they started making it and then just abandoned it.
It's an edited version of the track. So whoever cut it up cut 2 minutes out of the studio track, but it's a fairly seamless edit, and then they put it on top of this cartoon. It's still it was posted to YouTube 18 years ago. Luke.
Now I'm eager to synchronize One Better with a Russian cartoon.
Are there any parts of the studio version either you guys want me to sample? We haven't really sampled it yet. We don't have to, of course.
Mini bass solo, please.
And there's Mikey.
Oh man, that's a good shout, Frankie. That is a great bass solo.
Can you tell us about this bass solo, Luke?
Yeah, like you know what? It reminds me. It reminds me kind of like the Tommy the Cat solo on "Suck on This" a little bit. You know, when he just goes into like just a muted like thumping and plucking part, it almost sounds like Hamburger Train. You know, it's just all percussive. There's no notes, and then he goes into that little like major lick at the end. You know, I love when he does that. It reminds me of like the Suck on This solo. It's just kind of like in and out of keys. Sometimes it's diminished, sometimes it's major. But he like kind of signifies like, okay, I'm done. The solo's over now. I'm not going to attempt. My bass is on my lap now. I'm not going to attempt to play that solo. I don't fucking know how to do it.
I'm glad he worked that into the record.
Yeah, me too. It's great. It's good. I love that little maid, and then just right into Mike, Mikey going hard on the eighth notes there. Like it's great. That's a really fun little pass off solo section.
You got to have a bass solo in the bicep.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's cool. It's a powerful little punch there from the bicep.
What a fun tune. This is certainly one. Every once in a while, there will be a track that I've somewhat forgotten. In the sense that I just haven't listened to it in years and don't remember how it goes. This one, immediately remembered how it went as soon as I knew we were talking about this one. Went, oh yeah, I don't need to listen to this song very much.
When you had hit me up about this, I put on of Whales and Woe. I hadn't heard it in a while and can't say I remembered Back Off Turkey that well.
Fair.
No offense to all you Back Off Turkey enthusiasts, but then as soon as One Better starts, you're just like, oh yeah, it just gets the engine revving. It's a great kickoff.
Oh, you know it. Let's talk about these lyrics. We've talked about the music a lot, and it is time to put on our time machine. I'm just gonna make some stupid joke about the Cold War. Never mind.
Come on, man. That's a good. We can make Cold War riffs. It's not too soon.
Okay, I'll tee that up again.
Okay.
We've talked about the music for quite some time. We should talk about the lyrics. And to do so, Luke, we're all going to get into our Fallout bunkers, and we're going to unlock the Soviet codes so that we can stymie them and stop them from taking over the world. Dude,
a great Cold War puns. They landed. They landed. That's mine.
Hey, all right, they landed.
All right.
What I really like about these lyrics is much like the bass lick that you described and modeled for us, Luke. These lyrics are a bit off the beaten path for Claypool as well. It's not his standard, so he's a little more off kilter with the delivery of the lyrics. Not much of a rhyme scheme at all when he's telling his stories. There's some repetition, of course, and then it gets sing-songy in the chorus. With the repetition, I'm going to get you one better, and then the response of things like, I'm the baddest one around, I got the biggest balls in town. But he tells a couple of stories here, and the title One Better certainly shares with us what these stories are about. But what I really appreciate is he goes straight to consumerism and politics, which are fertile grounds for him, and he tells these two little vignettes of individuals who just have to one-up the other guy and just get one better on him or one-up them. What I like about both of them through those stanzas is the repetition of like Ike reeled his head back. I love that visual.
Yeah.
And, that's a mighty fine satellite. Which obviously Eisenhower didn't say. He was saying, we're all gonna fucking die! But I think what Les does really well here is in telling these stories, he just lays it out there, and it's pretty. We can fairly easily infer, what he's getting at. Luke, you're probably familiar with this idiom. Frankie, do you know the idiom "keeping up with the Joneses"?
Yes.
Okay.
Just trying to Yeah, just trying to one up your neighbor or your friends or whomever constantly, right?
Right.
Like
And
they
it's
got a new car, you want to get a better one.
right. Rooted, and it's usually rooted in some kind of sense of envy of a neighbor. Actually, I looked this up a long time ago, and it actually stems from an early 20th century newspaper cartoon called Keeping Up with the Joneses. And there's the joke is this guy's wife is always looking over at the Joneses and saying, "Oh, they've got these really nice things. You got to get a better job so we can afford them." And so as as wonderfully misogynistic as that is, it just kind of speaks to that idea of consumerism and envying one's neighbor, so on and so forth. So that's
really,
what we're seeing.
Once again, it's really amazing how Les can create such compelling and memorable character studies in such a compact and brief way.
Yep. Yeah, just through the story of a guy with a new car and a Russian satellite going into space.
And yet it's so evocative and so well written.
Absolutely.
There's actually, right now, there's a really idiotic thread on Reddit, which I just remembered because we're discussing these lyrics. You've probably seen it, Josh.
Oh, I go to Reddit every time you tell me there's something stupid there. By the way, Luke, Frankie's favorite thing is just to rail against what's happening in the Primus subreddit.
Oh man,
So,
I don't know if I've seen you in there, Frankie. I'm gonna have to keep my
No,
eye.
I don't post. I just read.
Yeah, me too.
He reads and then messages me.
Yeah.
Says, "Look at this."
Les Claypool will say some BS like Rick took the bric-a-brac to his pal Mac and spackled a cat and then spit out a bass line that could kill God. That is so stupid because come on, that's like someone that has only heard 2 Primus songs, right?
I mean, I like the spit out a bass line that could kill God. That's pretty good.
But Les doesn't get the credit he deserves as a songwriter because his lyrics can actually be quite complex, and even if they're not complex, even if the story is really straightforward, as in One Better, they are still very well written.
Yeah, they're simple and effective, especially in this song. And it's like, you can't forget the guy wrote a novel. You know, he is a writer.
Exactly.
What he does very well in a lot of his tunes, as he does here in One Better, is he picks a structure and then he uses some moving parts within it to tell one story, and then he uses the same structure and moves around some parts and tells another story, and then he gets his point across. And he does it fairly efficiently in this one too. And so these lyrics have always resonated with me, especially with the historical reference to Khrushchev and Eisenhower and the Sputnik satellite launch.
Thought you'd like that, J-Man.
Once you start getting into Cold War politics, I'm awake. Let's go. Like that. That's what I need to have a podcast about.
Yeah, if
Good.
there isn't already one.
No, I can't imagine anybody's ever done a podcast about something so esoteric. Yeah, I'm a big fan of these lyrics. I love the story they tell, and they are pretty funny because just the idea that Eisenhower, who of course presented as a gentleman and a very honorable man, would say something like, "I got the biggest balls in town." Now, I would believe that Harry S. Truman would say something like that, or Richard Nixon would say something like that.
I can't think of a single other president who would ever say something like that.
That beautiful music can only mean one thing. It's time for Primate's Takes. If you want your opinion about the song up for discussion, read right here on the podcast, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks, and the universal constant over there is that we will read your takes about the track right here. Frankie, we're starting off with Brooks Delight.
Oh my God.
He's going to break it down right now.
Right off the gate?
That's right. We are
right
doomed.
Off the gate?
He's setting the tone. Brooks Delight says, "Who doesn't love this one?" Definitely a Claypool top 5 for me, both musically and lyrically. The studio version is great, but the Fancy Band live versions are my favorite. Boom. We're out of jobs. Anthony Del Preet, go Bills, says, "I even like the little scratchy guitar in the background on this track. I've always wanted Dylan's vibes to be a little clearer in the mix on this recording, but the song kicks. Is this the bicep of the record? I forget."
Yes, it is.
And our pal Kevin says, "You know it's a banger when it gets you thinking about Les's balls."
Okay.
Edwin Allen Richards IV, our landed gentry, says, easily one of my favorite Claypool tracks of all time. Also a great track to show a newbie or someone who isn't familiar with Les's work. The funk vibes of this song are just too good. Eric in Australia, our resident curmudgeon, says, this is an all-time Claypool banger for me. Absolutely ripping bass line and such a clever character premise. There be Claypool gold in them hills.
Great.
Nice.
And our other pal in Australia, Simon Altman Frankie, invokes great jam vehicle that can go on forever. And we have one more Primates take that I would like to share from John Shreve, who says, a triumphant high-energy return from C2B3. Mike D and Skerrick bring this to a new level. Basically organized bastard jazz, but without Stanton Moore. Thinking of Eisenhower explaining that he'd upstage someone because of his nuts has always cracked me up.
Each review got better.
Yeah, those were good. Those were good.
Would you say each one got one better than the last?
Each one got one better than the previous one. Yes.
Very nice. Very good.
I like the take that this is a good like introductory track for somebody that's not as familiar with Claypool. I think it definitely is. Like,
Really?
I mean, yeah, I think it's catchy, and you show it to somebody, and they're like, yeah.
I would think so. If I was going to pick even off this record itself, if I was going to choose a track to introduce somebody to, I'd probably pick One Better.
Or Back Off Turkey.
I think, yeah.
It's better to expose people to some of the harshest, most left field material. And if they survive it, then I think they're game for listening to the rest of the catalog.
Wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So if we truly were back in the Cold War, Frankie would be the one advocating to launch the nukes and to sort the bodies out later.
Yes.
Wow.
So I'm like,
Frankie-
you've never heard Primus before? All right. Sit
Commies.
down. Here's a 15-minute drum solo followed by a song called Spaghetti Western.
I mean, I'd be sold though if that was like a tour de fromage, spaghetti.
Yes, exactly.
I'm in there. I just show people Dion's a Jig just because of the new hillbilly uprising and because of Billy Strings in the bluegrass world.
Oh, that is smart. That is how you bring in a new audience.
That's how I'm getting Primus back into the jam band scene.
Y'all like Billy Strings? Check this shit out.
Dion's a Jig, motherfucker.
They're like, wow, this rips. These guys kick ass.
Yeah. I could stomp to this.
Live cuts from
a jam vehicle.
live cuts from the jam vehicle. Live cuts from.
What's going on here?
It's Frankie's favorite part of the show. It's live cuts time. Frankie, you send a lot of cuts of One Better.
I did, and we're going to sample all of them.
And we're not going to sample all of them because there's no scrub bar on the World Cafe performance. However,
you have to stream World Cafe, please.
Frankie, there's no scrub bar, and it's like 20 minutes. I don't know what to tell you. I can't get to the time code. Porque me odias, Frankie. Come on, we had this talk last week. Our first live cut, July 15, 2006, in New York, at the Nokia Theater.
I was there.
Were you at this show?
Yeah.
Is this right after you bought the record?
I guess so, shortly after, but I didn't miss any of those Nokia Theater shows. And it changed, that place is constantly changing its venue name. It was the PlayStation Theater. I don't know. It was the Best Buy Theater. I don't even know what it is now. I think it's PlayStation. I don't fucking know.
Let's check out the breakdown at One Better Nokia Theater. Luke was there. Oh, yeah. That sounded nice. I also noticed that Frankie picked a envelope filter delight.
Absolutely.
Of course.
I like when he just drops into... It's just such like a funky thing. It also makes me realize I think I actually played that chorus wrong before. I think Lest is just going... and I think maybe like another instrument is like,
Oh, okay.
you know? So because some bass player out there is gonna be like, he fucked that up. I think he does go.
Gotcha.
So okay, corrected myself.
Yeah, I'll delete all the angry emails
Okay, thanks.
that I
Just forward
receive
them
in like the 20-minute gap, between you modeling it and then correcting yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Let's move forward to the bridge of the tune, as Frankie calls it. Talking. Some nice hi-hat work, by the way.
Yeah, very Jason.
Oh, there's that Tommy tease. And then let's go to the outro, because Frankie has been building up the outro to the live renditions of One Better all night.
Carl sounds so good on that Tommy the Cat tease.
Oh, yeah.
Just listen to Paulo Baldi on this. Straight to your shit.
That is killer. That is killer. They let Paulo go off like that.
Dang. I really love that outro. The way that they end it live. That sounds
It's amazing.
great.
Yeah, that's kick-ass.
Beautiful.
And for a drummer, I mean, when you gotta wrap up a song like that, is it something that makes you feel nervous, or is it something that you look forward to? I mean, I wouldn't know, but to me it just sounds so compelling that I wouldn't even know like where to start if somebody wanted to replicate that.
I think most drummers would go, time to shine, and just let it rip.
And I feel like Paulo doesn't do that too often either. You know, he doesn't like really go.
Paulo serves the songs and he knows how to restrain himself. So when Les lets him loose, that's the kind of thing that he can do.
Yeah, he's a pocket drummer, so yeah, hearing him take the spotlight is cool.
Yeah. Our next live cut is from 2 nights later, July 17, 2006, in Boston. Go Sox at the Roxy.
Oh, nice.
Were you at this one too, Luke?
No, I never saw them at the Roxy. I saw them at the Pavilion quite a few times, and elsewhere, but never the Roxy. R.I.P. I think it's just a different venue now.
Well, let's hear what the Roxy sounded like. I have to... Wow, this is a 14-minute cut, by the way.
It is.
Holy smokes.
Wow.
All right, let's hear what Frankie terms the bridge again. Pretty rad. I think I've said this before, but there are just certain cuts, and this I think is qualifying. I just want Les to record a funk record, straight funk. Like get a whole bunch of funk legends, and Jayski on drums, why not? And then just do a straight funk album.
Yeah, he's definitely getting into that like P-funk mode.
Yeah.
With that. it's like that We Want the Funk bass line, He's like really laying into it in these live cuts. It's cool.
It's ripping. You might hear a familiar tune coming up in this part of the track. There's a person in the crowd who really enjoys this rendition of Glide. It's like one person just screaming their fool head off. Love it. Yeah, that bass sounds great.
Something like that.
For those of you listening, that wasn't the live recording. That was Luke Bemand.
That was me
on
trying
bass.
to do that part of Glide, yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
It's a great track.
For our last stop on the One Better Express, we are going back to the Everglades, March 6, 2008. Is this the infamous Envelope Filter show, Frankie?
It is the Envelope Filter Delight show.
We get to hear some wonderful bass. And of course, Mike can just pick up and double it whenever he wants. It's pretty cool. They're taking it to a different place there. We haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, it's cool. He they base a lot of these jams around the One Better being based around like an E7 chord, so like a dominant seventh chord, which is a popular like funk chord, like a
Sure,
Groundhog's Day chord. And he's really like leaning into like with the it almost has more of like a minor sound to it in the verses and the chorus, but they're really leaning into that like 7-chord funk with the improv, which gives the song kind of a different feel, I feel like.
That was definitely different. That was a lot of fun.
But yeah, like the leaning more into like the major key vibe
Yeah.
of the dominant 7, if I may music nerd out.
You may. And it looks like Frankie really wants us to hear Glide again, so why not? Everglades style, baby. Sounds pretty good to me. Good one. Anytime he throws in a Glide, I'm pretty happy because it's so funky.
Yeah, I'm playing Glide with a band this weekend, actually, so...
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I just look... Banger.
That's one you can pretty well dig into, I imagine. It probably feels really good.
Oh, yeah, it's so fun. It's like E minor. For the first time I heard it, I didn't know what it was. I think it was like a Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains show.
Oh,
and
okay.
They teased it, and then I heard it, and then like years later, I found out what the song was. Yeah, it's a great bass line.
Nice. And we're going to wrap it up with the outro here.
I love it. Yeah, it's just like a chromatic. But then the last one up the minor scale.
Yeah.
Great ending.
Sounded good. And I know that was an audience recording, but that bass at the end with that strumming sounded so blown out. It was great. Love that sound.
Yeah. That's a cool. What venue is that?
I don't
I'm
know
just
why
picturing
I
it just like
closed it.
in the swamps of the Everglades, not even like at a venue, just like on a steamboat going down the river.
Yeah, Everglades National Park, Langerado Music Festival. So
Oh, is that
just been-
Langerado? Yeah.
Frankie keeps taking us back to the Everglades. I've gotten malaria like 5 times. I guess I could say this: one better. Well, try to make it 2 better because you've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, it burns.
Sometimes it itches and burns.
We'll just leave it at that. Luke Bemand, thank you so much for joining us today to talk One Better. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, fellas. Always a blast. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. And you are at Luke Bemand Bass on Instagram, of course. La Special Music. You're all over the place, man. I don't know how you keep up with your numerous social media accounts.
Yeah, this is all about the Grimstones, really.
Go get those Grimstones. Prime Matrons, Primates, People of Earth, Frankie, Luke, thank you all so much. Later days.
Thanks, everybody.
Billy Mays.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.